The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony. Welcome back to the Berean Pursuit. This is week 3, day 3. Today's reading is from Genesis 32 through 34, Psalm 145, and Mark 13. Yesterday, we saw Jacob's wives having 11 sons and 1 daughter. And then after Joseph is born to Rachel, Jacob then worked another 6 years for Laban in exchange for animals from his flock that were born with specific colorings. And whatever it was, God made sure that the strong animals were born in that way so that they went to Jacob. And he made Jacob very wealthy in that way. In fact, he became so wealthy that Laban and his sons no longer were friendly with Jacob. And God then told Jacob to go back to his father's house. And so he did. He left without telling Laban. And then Laban chased him and caught up with him. But before he got to him, God spoke to Laban and told him not to say anything good or bad to Jacob. In other words, don't harm him. And so they made a covenant and went their separate ways. All right, that brings us to the reading for today. All right, let's begin our reading in Genesis chapter 32. Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is the camp of God." So he named that place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He instructed them, "You are to say to my master Esau, 'Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, men servants, and maidservants. I have sent this message to inform my master so that I may find favor in your sight.' When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, 'We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, he and 400 men with him.' In fear and distress, Jacob divided his people into 2 camps, as well as the flocks and herds and camels. He thought, 'If Esau comes and attacks one camp, then the other camp can escape.' Then Jacob declared, 'O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, the Lord who told me, "Go back to your country and to your kindred, and I will make you prosper," I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. Indeed, with only my staff I came across the Jordan, but now I have become 2 camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid that he may come and attack me and the mothers and children with me. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and I will make your offspring like the sand of the sea, too numerous to count.' Jacob spent the night there, and from what he had brought with him, he selected a gift for his brother Esau. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He entrusted them to his servants in separate herds and told them, 'Go on ahead of me and keep some distance between the herds.' He instructed the one in the lead, 'When my brother Esau meets you and asks, "To whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose animals are these before you?" then you are to say, "They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau. And behold, Jacob is behind us." He also instructed the second, the third, and all those following behind the herds, "When you meet Esau, you are to say the same thing to him. You are also to say, 'Look, your servant Jacob is right behind us.' For he thought, 'I will appease Esau with a gift that is going before me. After that I can face him, and perhaps he will accept me.' So Jacob's gifts went on before him while he spent the night in the camp. During the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, along with all his possessions. So Jacob was left all alone, and there a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower Jacob, he struck the socket of Jacob's hip and dislocated it as they wrestled. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" the man asked. "Jacob," he replied. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men, and you have prevailed." And Jacob requested, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed Jacob there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, saying, "Indeed, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him as he passed by Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon which is at the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was struck near that tendon. Now Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming toward him with 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 maidservants. He put the maidservants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph at the rear. But Jacob himself went on ahead and bowed to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. Esau, however, ran to him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they both wept. When Esau looked up and saw the women and children, he asked, "Who are these with you?" Jacob answered, "These are the children God has graciously given your servant." Then the maidservants and their children approached and bowed down. Leah and her children also approached and bowed down, and then Joseph and Rachel approached and bowed down. "What do you mean by sending this whole company to meet me?" asked Esau. "To find favor in your sight, my lord," Jacob answered. "I already have plenty, my brother," Esau replied. "Keep what belongs to you." But Jacob insisted, "No, please. If I have found favor in your sight, then receive this gift from my hand. For indeed, I have seen your face, and it is like seeing the face of God, since you have received me favorably. Please accept my gift that was brought to you, because God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need." So Jacob pressed him until he accepted. Then Esau said, "Let us be on our way, and I will go ahead of you." But Jacob replied, "My Lord knows that the children are frail, and I must care for sheep and cattle that are nursing their young. If they are driven hard for even a day, all the animals will die. Please let my Lord go ahead of his servant. I will continue on slowly at a comfortable pace for the livestock and children until I come to my Lord at Seir." "Let me leave some of my people with you," Esau said. But Jacob replied, "Why do that? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord." So that day Esau started on his way back to Seir, but Jacob went on to Succoth, where he built a house for himself and shelters for his livestock. That is why the place was called Succoth. After Jacob had come from Paddan Aram, he arrived safely at the city of Shechem in the land of Canaan, and he camped just outside the city. And the plot of ground where he pitched his tent he purchased from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of silver. There he set up an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. Now Dinah, the daughter Leah had borne to Jacob, went out to visit the daughters of the land. When Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, the prince of the region, saw her, he took her and lay with her by force. And his soul was drawn to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the young girl and spoke to her tenderly. So Shechem told his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as a wife." Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah, But since his sons were with his livestock in the field, he remained silent about it until they returned. Meanwhile, Shechem's father Hamor came to speak with Jacob. When Jacob's sons heard what had happened, they returned from the field. They were filled with grief and fury because Shechem had committed an outrage in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing that should not be done. But Hamor said to them, "My son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give us your daughters, and take our daughters for yourselves. You may settle among us, and the land will be open to you. Live here, move about freely, and acquire your own property." Then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, "Grant me this favor, and I will give you whatever you ask. Demand a high dowry and an expensive gift, and I will give you whatever you ask. Only give me the girl as my wife." But because Shechem had defiled their sister Dinah, Jacob's sons answered him and his father Hamor deceitfully. "We cannot do such a thing," they said. "To give our sister to an uncircumcised man would be a disgrace to us. We will consent to this on one condition, that you become circumcised like us, every one of your males. Then we will give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We will dwell among you and become one people. But if you do not agree to be circumcised, then we will take our sister and go." Their offer seemed good to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man, who was the most respected of all his father's household, did not hesitate to fulfill this request because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city and addressed the men of their city. "These men are at peace with us. Let them live and trade in our land. Indeed, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters in marriage and give our daughters to them, but only on this condition will the men agree to dwell with us and be one people. If all our men are circumcised as they are, will not their livestock, their possessions, and all their animals become ours? Only let us consent to them, and they will dwell among us." All the men who went out of the city gate listened to Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male of the city was circumcised. 3 days later, while they were still in pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Dinah's brothers, Simeon and Levi, took their swords, went into the unsuspecting city, and slaughtered every male. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with their swords, took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went away. Jacob's other sons came upon the slaughter and looted the city, because their sister had been defiled. They took their flocks and herds and donkeys and everything else in the city or in the field. They carried off all their possessions and women and children, and they plundered everything in their houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble upon me by making me a stench to the Canaanites and Perizzites, the people of this land. We are few in number. If they unite against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed." But they replied, "Should he have treated our sister like a prostitute?" All right, let's read Psalm 145. A psalm of praise of David. "I will exalt you, my God and King. I will bless your name forever and ever. Every day I will bless you, and I will praise your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. His greatness is unsearchable. One generation will commend your works to the next, and will proclaim your mighty acts, the glorious splendor of your majesty. And I will meditate on your wondrous works. They will proclaim the power of your awesome deeds, and I will declare your greatness. They will extol the fame of your abundant goodness and sing joyfully of your righteousness. The Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in loving devotion. The Lord is good to all. His compassion rests on all he has made. All you have made will give you thanks, O Lord, and your saints will bless you. They will tell of the glory of your kingdom and speak of your might, to make known to men your mighty acts and the glorious splendor of your kingdom. Your kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and your dominion endures through all generations. The Lord is faithful in all his words and kind in all his actions. The Lord upholds all who fall and lifts up all who are bowed down. The eyes of all look to you, and you give them their food in season. You open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways and kind in all his deeds. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call out to him in truth. He fulfills the desires of those who fear him. He hears their cry and saves them. The Lord preserves all who love him, but all the wicked he will destroy. My mouth will declare the praise of the Lord. Let every creature bless his holy name forever and ever. All right, so in the book of Mark, last time we read about this last week in Jesus' life. He's entered into Jerusalem, and he came in as a king, as the Savior. The people were praising him. Well, in yesterday's reading, then we saw that he told the parable of the wicked vineyard tenants who beat the servants sent to collect the fruit and eventually even killed some of them and killed the son who was sent to them. And that was pointing to the Jews killing the prophets and eventually killing the Son of God himself, Jesus. And he prophesied then that they would be destroyed because of that. And we're going to see some of that idea in today's reading as well. The leaders then wanted to arrest Jesus, but they were afraid of the crowds. So instead they tried to trap Jesus with asking him difficult questions. But Jesus was able to answer in such a way that there just wasn't anything they could do. He used perfect wisdom in his answers. And so he then pointed out the moral failures of the scribes. The reading ended with him looking at this poor widow. He's pointing out what she did, that she gave more than all others because it was out of her poverty that she gave to the treasury of the temple. All right, that brings us to the reading for today in Mark 13. As Jesus was leaving the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Teacher, look at the magnificent stones and buildings." "Do you see all these great buildings?" Jesus replied. "Not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down." While Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are about to be fulfilled?" Jesus began by telling them, "See to it that no one deceives you. Many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and will deceive many. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. These things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places as well as famines. These are the beginning of birth pains. So be on your guard. You will be delivered over to the councils and beaten in the synagogues. On my account, you will stand before governors and kings as witnesses to them. And the gospel must first be proclaimed to all the nations. But when they arrest you and hand you over, do not worry beforehand what to say. Instead, speak whatever you are given at that time, for it will not be you speaking, but the Holy Spirit. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rise against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of my name, but the one who perseveres to the end will be saved. So when you see the abomination of desolation standing where it should not be, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go back inside to retrieve anything from his house. and let no one in the field return for his cloak. How miserable those days will be for pregnant and nursing mothers. Pray that this will not occur in the winter, for those will be days of tribulation unmatched from the beginning of God's creation until now, and never to be seen again. If the Lord had not cut short those days, nobody would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, whom he has chosen, he has cut them short. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Christ," or "There he is," do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform signs and wonders that will deceive even the elect, if that were possible. So be on your guard. I have told you everything in advance. But in those days after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. At that time they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And he will send out the angels to gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its branches become tender and sprout leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see these things happening, know that he is near, right at the door. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. No one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on your guard and stay alert, for you do not know when the appointed time will come. It is like a man going on a journey who left his house, put each servant in charge of his own task, and instructed the doorkeeper to keep watch. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know when the master of the house will return, whether in the evening, at midnight, when the rooster crows, or in the morning. Otherwise, he may arrive without notice and find you sleeping. And what I say to you, I say to everyone, keep watch. Okay. In our reading today, we saw Jacob being afraid of his brother Esau. And he had a good reason. Esau had wanted to kill him the last time they saw each other 20 years before this. And now Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men. And on the way, we see a very significant event in Jacob's life where he wrestled with this man and he dislocated his hip. And then this man blessed him and gave him a new name, which was Israel. And so Israel seems to mean one who struggles with God, which seems a little bit strange as a blessing. But the blessing is that he prevailed in his struggle with God. He became closer to God. He came to know God. And he became truly a servant of God. In his struggle, he hasn't become perfect, but he is seeking something greater than what he has. He's very wealthy. He has a large family, but he's looking for something much greater than this. In the book of Hebrews 11, we are told that he was seeking a heavenly city. And so he's still growing, but he has this relationship with God. He's justified by faith, just like Abraham was. And then we read about him meeting his brother Esau and the joy that they had as they came back together without any animosity. And Jacob gave a lot of animals to Esau. It seems like it began out of fear, but even after Esau said that it wasn't necessary, he continued out of brotherly love, I believe, to go ahead and give those to his brother. Perhaps there was some feeling of guilt there as well from what he had done to Esau in the past. And then we see Jacob finding a place to camp at Shechem. And he puts up an altar there. He names it El Elohe Israel, which means God, the God of Israel. So he's really accepting of this new name. And it's focused on this relationship that he has with God. The one who struggled with God has God. He is his God, and he's determined to worship him. Unfortunately, we don't see everything staying nice for Jacob and for his family. We see a very common attitude, it seems, among the worldly people in that region, where Shechem actually rapes Dinah, the teenage daughter of Jacob. And Jacob wasn't sure how to deal with it. It's very difficult to know how to deal with a people who don't understand that what they've done is incredibly wicked. But then we find his sons Simeon and Levi coming up with a plan. After Reuben, who's the oldest, you have Simeon and Levi, the two oldest after him. And so they come up with a plan to get revenge, which involves killing all the men in the city of Shechem. And so they're actually going to lose out on the greater blessings later on in their life because of what they did here. But Jacob is afraid that the people of the land are going to attack them because of what they have done here. But we're going to see in tomorrow's reading that God does protect them. But right now, he's very upset with his sons for what they have done. When we read in Mark today, we saw Jesus talking about the time when Jerusalem would be destroyed by the Roman army. That's the abomination of desolation, which is made clear in the Gospel of Luke, if you're not clear on what that is. But this is really a fulfillment. What he's talking about is how it's going to be fulfilled, what he talked about in the parable of the wicked vineyard tenants from yesterday's reading. How is God going to bring a punishment to take out these wicked tenants and give the vineyard to someone else? The destruction of Jerusalem is how he's going to do it. And so Jesus would actually be the one coming in judgment against Jerusalem. He talks about him coming in the clouds. That's not the final judgment. He's not talking about the end of the world there. He's talking about coming against Jerusalem in judgment using the Roman army. And because of the warning that he gave, the Christians were actually able to escape from Jerusalem when this destruction came. All right, well, that's the reading for today. All right, and I want to leave you with a song that goes quite well with the ideas in Psalm 145 that we read today, as well as what we see in the life of Jacob with the faithfulness of God towards him and fulfilling his promises to keep him safe, to bring him back and make him successful. And that song is Great is Thy Faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.